I'm Cam Thomas. I'm representing Congressman Hern's office. I'm interviewing William Caldwell on Wednesday, October 30th, 2019 at Legends Retirement Community in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Also present is Ashley Wells, who is operating the camera, and Mr. Caldwell's daughter, Nancy Day. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project. Where and when were you born?
Granfield, Oklahoma, 1922.
What were your parents' names?
Henry and Mamie Caldwell.
And what were their occupations?
What was their what?
Their occupations.
He was a farmer and she was just a housewife.
What primary and secondary schools or college did you attend?
Well, I started out at the country elementary school, Spring Valley, and went there 2 years, and we moved to Frederick, and I spent 2 more years there, and we moved to Durant, and I stayed there and finished high school, went to OU, Marquette, went to the Army and came back and bought a grocery store. And I finished up college. I slacked a year there at Southeastern University at Durant.
Did you hold any jobs before you entered the service?
Well, I bought a grocery store in 1945, right after I got out, and I ran it and went to school and for about 5.5 years.
And what about before you entered the service? Did you have any jobs before?
Oh no, just a summer job, just a student. I was in the service and just short-time jobs. I worked for a concrete block company there in Milwaukee and worked for Slits Brewery for a short time, but that was all.
Did your parents serve in the military?
Did what?
Did your parents serve in the military?
No, no, they didn't.
Can you tell us about when you went into the military?
What?
Can you tell us about when you went into the military?
Well, I signed up everything in 1942, and they didn't call us until about February of 1943. We shipped out from Chicago to Grand Forks, North Dakota, and then I went to back to California and finished up all my cadet flying time there in California. I graduated from at Stockton Air Force Base in class of 44E. That means 1944.
So you enlisted, you weren't drafted?
Yes, I enlisted. I never received a draft notice of any kind. So I just enlisted.
What made you want to join? What made you want to join?
Well, everybody else was going in, and my brothers were all in, and so I knew they was going to get me sometime soon, so I just went ahead and enlisted. So with a bunch of my friends there at Marquette, yeah.
Is there a reason you chose the branch you chose?
Oh no, I'd never flown, had no desire. I'd looked at the Navy, but I decided I didn't want to be on the water all my life, as long as you could have to, and so I just decided the Air Force is what I wanted.
How old were you when you entered the service?
20.
Who or what did you leave behind when you went into the military?
What?
Who or what did you leave behind at home when you went into the military? Did you leave any family members behind when you went into the military? Or?
No, like wife or children. No. I was single, and I'm sorry, but I was single. No.
Did you have any friends from your hometown who also served who you were close with?
No, I was in Milwaukee, and my hometown was Durant, Oklahoma, which was quite a few miles away. No, I wasn't with any long-time friends, no.
What was the best part of basic training?
Well, it was in California, and at a place called Caldwell. It's a real jazzy flight school near the town of Ontario, California, and it was just too good to be true. Boy, they served us meals, they had tablecloths, and our so-called barracks were more like a real nice motel, and we had two to a room. Oh, it was nice, real nice.
What was the worst part of basic training?
Oh, I don't know that I had a worst part. I can't. We had so much fun, and things were so nice for us. I don't recall having a bad day in my training. There was a bunch of guys you liked, and we just the food was good. Our motel, our lodging was good. So I wished I could come up with something, but I can't. It was more or less fun for me. I don't know why, but it was. I'd been in the National Guards before then, when I was in high school, and now that was not fun, but compared to that, this was just really a joy.
Did you receive any specialized training?
No, I didn't.
And you said California is where your basic training occurred. Did you train anywhere else?
Yeah, from Caldwell. I stayed there for primary and basic, which was a two-wing the primary airplane, and the other was a single engine. And we went to Stockton Air Force Base, and it was a twin-engine airplane, and graduated there. And I was disappointed now. They came there to make a movie named Winged Victory. And they shot us in the audience, and I received an award and walked up on the stage, and it was a big group of brass behind me, and that old camera was just a-going. But they erased all of us, and wasn't any of it in the movie. A guy named Zanuck, very outstanding director. But to tell you the truth, it was a lousy movie. It first opened up when we were all most of us were in Europe, and we couldn't wait to get to see it because we just knew we were going to be in the movie. Got there, and there wasn't one of us. They didn't take our graduating class, and so we kind of wanted our money back. But no, it was terrible. I don't know if it had a plot, but if it did, we didn't pick it up. We didn't like it. But that was the size of that. From there, we went to Kingman, Arizona, for some more or less training in the B-17, and then we went to Lincoln, Nebraska, and got a crew. Then from there we went to several different places, but one I remember most was Alexandria, Louisiana. Lord, it was August, hot. I mean, you haven't seen hot. Steamy. We don't have anything like they have there as far as humidity. But anyway, we stayed there for a month or two, and then we went back to Lincoln and got an airplane, and we flew to England, and at a place called Attleboro. And that was the name of the little town. Now the name of the airport was Deepin Green. I guess that must have been the farmer that sold his land to the government to make it into an airport. So that we stayed there till we were shot down, and it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't. Just Quonset hut for barracks, and we nearly froze to death, but other than that, it was all right.
So that was your first assignment after basic training, was in England?
First.
Your first assignment after basic training?
Well, first assignment was this training down in Arizona, and after we graduated, and we stayed down there and got checked out a little bit in the B-17, and then we started skipping around to different air bases for whatever training they were providing there. You know, different things that you could expect. And one was Louisiana, and came back to Arizona, so it wasn't anything spectacular, but it was something you had to do.
How did you adjust to military life?
Well, pretty good. I thought I did. Like I say, I was 3 years of National Guards before I went in, so I knew how to march and all those things. And I went in the National Guards when I was 14 years old. They had to do some adjusting on ages, because you're supposed to be 17 and a half. But anyway, I stayed in the Guards for over 3 years, and so I kind of knew what it was going to be like, having been in the Guards. But as far as adjusting, there wasn't, you didn't have much time to do, you do too much. When you wasn't doing anything, you wasn't much anything to do. If you wasn't on leave, you go to sleep, get on the cot and stay there. So there wasn't much adjusting to do. You didn't have time to adjust.
Where all were you stationed overseas?
What?
Where all were you stationed overseas?
Just at one place, Attleboro. Just the one place.
What were some things you noticed about being abroad that were different than being in the United States?
Oh, there's several different things. One, every morning when you woke up, the first thing you could smell was Brussels sprouts cooking, or parsnips, but mainly Brussels sprouts. It just seemed like the air was filled vapors or whatever from Brussels sprouts. And I said I'd hope to never eat a Brussels sprout. I didn't even know what they were. But that was the first thing that we didn't like. And I think going to London and seeing some things there, and my brother-in-law was about 8 miles from Attleboro, so I went up to visit him a couple of times, and I saw a lot of things in London, and I went down there 2 or 3 times. I visited a friend over at Liverpool, and but other than that, I didn't get very far from home.
Were you in a combat support or combat service support role?
Combat?
Were you in a combat role? Is that what your role was while you were in the service?
Yeah, well, they flew over. They bombed the heck out of London and England, but they only flew over a few times after we got there. But when we left in the morning, when we were on a flight, we flew over Germany and to our target, and sure, that was combat, I guess you'd say.
What were your main duties?
Well, looking out for other airplanes and flying and adjusting different gauges there on the dashboard, and asking any questions that the crew might have. Where are we, and we double checked the bomb load, and we had some routine things to do, but my main duty was flying, or if he got tired or I got tired, fill in for the other one, but be on the lookout and looking. And we took off every morning. It seemed like it. I don't remember a morning that we didn't take off in a fog, and that's called blind flying. And you have to really get your eyes to going, because a lot of times we were flying as close as 4 or 5 feet off to the wing of another airplane, so you had to really watch what you're doing and keep your mind on it, and both of you looking to see if there's any changes, but that was all.
What type of planes did you fly in?
B-17, a 4-engine bomber.
Did you form any friendships while you served?
Did what?
Did you form any friendships while you served?
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure did. Well, the crew, you kind of saw them, but they had their friends that they slept with, in the same barracks. But when I was shot down and as a prisoner, I made friends with my radio operator and the bombardier off a plane that got shot down. He was from George Peden. He was from Hilton, Oklahoma. And my radio operator was named Ed Howard, and he was from his home was in Alabama, but he was a professor at Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That's Middle Tennessee University. And it got down to just the two of us were still alive, and we kept in contact and nearly every month or two till he passed away 2 or 3 months ago. And you kind of reminisced and talked about how some of the other guys were doing, or who's was left. But yes, I'd say he was a good friend. I would call him one.
Were you able to stay in touch with your family while you were serving?
Oh, prison?
Just while you were serving, your family?
Yeah. When I was, before I was shot down, I wrote every one of my brothers. I had 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and of course, Dad and Mother. And I made a point to get a letter off to more than one to some of my brothers, but I wrote them all, and sisters, and where we were, best we could, where we were, and how it was like, and my sister, that I saw her husband, I told her that I'd seen him a couple of times, and he looked like he's holding his own, about, about 200, but yes, I kept in touch.
Did they send stuff to you?
Mm-hmm. No. I had one brother that wrote, and both sisters, and my mother. And Dad added a note or two, but I got a letter from my mother and 2 sisters and 1 brother. The rest of them acted like their hand was broken or something. They didn't write. That's all I know.
Did your brother serve as well?
I had 4 brothers. We were all in the service at the same time. And according to an American Legion guy that used to be here, we had more blood brothers than anybody else in Oklahoma. Now I don't know how he found that out, but by going to some of the Oklahoma American Legion conventions, but there was more. A lot of times there was one family that had he had some children and she had some children and they married, but they weren't having the same mother and dad. And we had 5, and that was supposed to be the most. I don't know how it would rank up anymore over the country, but anyway, that was pretty good.
Did you serve close to each other, or were they in different areas?
Well, I had, one brother was in Germany, in the Army, field artillery, and he got shot up pretty bad, but he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he was in the landing of France, and then I had a brother in the Navy in South Pacific, and another brother in the Air Force in South Pacific, and I had another brother that was in the outfit from Oklahoma that was mobilized. Was the 45th Division, a Rainbow outfit, and he served in the Army, came up through Africa, Sicily, Italy, up that way with General Patton, and I didn't see any of them, but I kind of knew they could identify a little bit where they were and what they were doing, but it was 5 of us. All came home, so we were happy about that.
What did you do for recreation while you were in the service?
Well, like I say, at Attleboro there wasn't much to do. I don't think there was hardly anything, in London. But in the cadet, we all played all kinds of, basketball, and baseball, all kinds of sports that But in England, I didn't do anything. I don't hardly know any base that had, you know, a basketball gym or something like that. No, didn't do anything. If you had to leave, you went to London, or you went to, like I went to Liverpool once to visit a friend, but that's about it. Just looking for something a building or some old church to look at.
What were the meals like?
They were very good, yeah. I mean, for Army, yeah. Just potatoes and beans and whatever the vegetable was in the locality you were. Like we were in, I don't know, I've forgotten what else, but I remember those Brussels sprouts. I didn't eat any of them, but they were served a lot. But they were pretty good meals. Yeah, no complaints on the meals. Those GI cooks were pretty good.
How were the living conditions?
Well, you lived in a Quonset hut. That looks like a big circle cut in half, and they made a lodge. You'd sleep 8 in the Quonset hut, 8 cots, and so they were very rustic, I guess you'd say. Had a pot-bellied stove in there for in the middle of it for warmth, and I got awful cold. In England, it seemed like to me there was a mist every morning, and pretty cool. So I wasn't too happy with the weather, but the rest of it's just typical Army stuff, you know, the living conditions. And they had some shows that would come into the officers' club, and periodically talent from London would come up, you know, and put on some type of musical.
Tell us about your flying missions.
Well, I guess my first and last mission were, the first one was we flew over a city named Hamburg, and that's up on the coast. And we went over Hamburg, going north, and we were flying at 150 miles an hour. The wind was at 100, so we were only going 50 miles an hour flying over that city. But their bombs were awful thick, but they didn't come up. I don't know what was wrong with them, but they were about 2,000 or 3,000 feet below us. We could see them, the bombs bursting down below. So that was, I'd say, uneventful. A few planes got some shrapnel, but that was all. Then my last one was supposed to be the largest payload of bombs that the B-17 ever had carried, and it was the furthest distance. We were going to go over 15 miles from the Russian line, and we were going at the highest level that the B-17 had ever flown, 33,000 feet, I think. And the target had to be what they call clear, C-A-B-U, but clear, and before you dropped your bomb, and it wasn't. So we had to take the secondary target, and our flight leader, it's about 16 in a flight, just for some reason, decided to take off to away from the body of the flight. And we're sitting out there, it's like sitting ducks. And two German jets, we were making a heavy vapor trail. You know what the vapor, it was heavy. And they came up through the vapor trail, and our guys that had never seen one, we didn't even know they had them. They only had 200, but anyway, our guys finally got a glimpse of them, and they thought they were P-51s, till they got right up on us and fired at us. And you know what the ball turret is on a B-17? Underneath that round thing that goes round in it? Well, they shot that away from the airplane. And my friend was off my wing that saw him just falling free. It killed him immediately. And they shot out our two inboard engines. And we lost our communication, and oxygen. It's terrible, you can't even. So he left and went back and came back and got us again. But we got one of them. It was two, and we got one. But he hit some more places on the airplane. It's a way to put the fire out of those engines. And we tried it 3 times and didn't have any luck. So we got everybody to bail out. And that was the last one. There's just one parachute left. And I could tell it was real little. And I wasn't very little. I weighed 190 pounds. But I took it, because that's all there was, and jumped. So that was a big part of that area. And when I jumped out, I didn't have any oxygen, and so naturally, I was out of it. And I heard this bomb explosion, and I looked up, and it was our airplane. That thing blew all to smithereens. And flew on for several minutes and going down, and parachute opened, and so that was uneventful. And I guess we got down around 20,000 feet, and I look out the window, and there's a German single engine pilot circling me. And he pulled his mask off, and he was just grinning like a cat eating paste. And he waved, but I could tell that he wasn't going to shoot me right then, because he didn't have a bead on me. He was circling. So after a little while, here comes an American fighter pilot, P-47. And he chases him off, and he comes back and pulls down his mask and the window and waves and salutes. And so it was kind of scary there for a little while, but there's a kind of an unwritten rule. I didn't know it. I thought I was just going to be a sitting target up there for him. But if a guy's coming using a parachute, and you approach him in your airplane, enemy, you don't shoot him. You don't kill him. So, but that was long after I got home that I found out that the Geneva Convention, it wasn't in the Geneva, but it was an unwritten rule that they just didn't do it. So that was good enough for me. And then I hit pretty hard, and this German was in a field plowing with a one bottom plow with one ox, and a man was leading the ox, and he had a hold of the stalk of the little one bottom plow. And this old boy that was leading that ox started running over to me, grinning, and I thought, oh man, I've got me a friend. But he was a Polish prisoner, and he couldn't speak any more English than I could Polish. But the old farmer started running at me with a pitchfork. You know what a pitchfork?
Mm-hmm.
And now this is a rule, that if you have a gun on you and it's loaded, the enemy can do anything they want to with you, and there's no explaining why. Well, I pitched my gun out. I pulled it out of my holster and threw it on the ground, and then I threw my bullets out on the ground. And then when I did that, that old farmer took that pitchfork and stuck in the ground, and he was a different person. He started kind of grinning and running. All this took place in less than about 50 yards from where he was and where I was, so you wasn't very far. You could see what they were doing. So that was how I landed, and that's about all that took place right there.
So then you were a POW?
Yeah, they took us down to an old house, a warehouse, and so by now they have about 7 of the 2 airplanes that were shot down in our flight. And they lined us up again, facing that old building wall, and these soldiers were standing behind us, cocking their rifle. You know what clicking noise? They were doing it so much it sounded like a machine gun, but we were all quaking in our boots. We thought, what they don't go ahead and shoot, you know. But they were just, I think, having a good time. They wasn't laughing. They said turn around, but they weren't frowning either. But anyway, that amounted to nothing. But it got those they call the old people that got a handicap or too old to go on Wehrmacht. That's their, I guess maybe we call them National Guards, but they were guys that couldn't qualify for the service. And we think they certainly got their thrills. I don't know if they thought we were going to faint or pass out or whatever. But anyway, we went from there over to prison and stayed there a little while.
What were the conditions like? What were the conditions like there?
Oh, well, it wasn't much condition. It's a little single freestanding building. It was a prison. I had cells about as wide from here to Nancy. I had 2 wooden, we call them slabs, but they were that's what you slept on, up about that high, and had 1 little window out the back, you know, that you could look out, and so that wasn't very good. And for breakfast, that was at midnight. For breakfast, we had ersatz honey. that's imitation honey. That's made out of coal, a derivative of coal named coke. It's something, after it gets in a certain stage, they call it coke. And then we had some black bread and what's that stinking cheese? A cheese that smells so bad. You don't know?
I don't know.
Well, I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, that's all we had for breakfast. But the English bombed at night, so we got there about 9 or 10 o'clock. And about 12 o'clock night, we bombed 12 o'clock daytime. So we saw some people walking down the road, out there by the, no lights on, but you can see their silhouette. And they bombed it, and when they did, that darn guard, we had one guard in that building, he took off. Well, we didn't like that very much, did he? Kept us locked up in there, but everybody hit the bar ditch, thinking that'd be a good place to hide. But, so we gave some imitation siren noise. We got it down where we could all, there was about 5 or 6 cells of it, 2 in each one. So the next day at noon, about 5 or 10 minutes to 12, we all got to the window and went like a siren, and with 8 or 10 of us all going, well, it sounded pretty real. And it was so much fun to see those old big women hit the bar ditch and water splattering everywhere. Oh, they were big. And had big coveralls on. And our guard was had one eye, got the other eye put out in. They were having war with Russia at the same time, Russia, and but he tried to carry on. He could speak a little English. He tried to carry on a lot of conversation with us, and so we. I don't say we enjoyed it, but it'd be getting out and walking on the road, just but sleep on that wooden slab. So we left there after about 2 days and walked and rode an old steam engine truck at the steam part of the truck was like a water heater, and it was on the passenger side of on the running board. And if you got a little incline, we had to get off and help push that thing up the hill. It could go all right on level ground. But we went on to another place, and I don't know what its name was, but that's where we were, what you call interrogated. And it was oh, I know, I don't know the name, but it was a Hitler youth camp. In the morning, 2 or 3 companies of boys with uniforms and a rifle on their shoulder, they started marching out of the compound and singing some German song, and that's the way they came back late in the evening. So we don't know where they went or what they did. Then there were a bunch of girls that had blue pantaloons. They were tied around here and of course their waist, but full in the leg. Girls here used to use them for basketball. And then he had white socks and a white shirt and a blue uh, scarf around her neck. And they were all about the same size, kind of beefy. And we didn't have any contact with them, we just saw them. But we were interrogated there, and this guy that did the interrogation was a good-looking German man, and I don't know what caused him, what made him, but anyway, he told me, well, he could speak better English than I did. I thought that he had graduated from Columbia University in New York, and he knew a lot of things about where we live. He was asking me questions. He said, and you're supposed to give your name, your rank, and your serial number. And after you do that a few times, you get a little tired of it, but the interviewer, I guess he really got tired of it. He said, now, Caldwell, I know you're from Oklahoma, and I know that your clock is on above the south door of the officers club. Now, you might as well go ahead, he tried to tell me, you tell me what you want, I need to answer my questions, and please give me that same answer every time. But you just can't give in, and you're warned of what this is going to do. And let's see, I've forgotten. He asked me several questions. It was, questions that he probably knew, but he just wanted to see if I'd tell him the truth. And finally he said, he was just sitting in a plane, across the table from each other. All of a sudden he slammed his fist down, the papers flew up, and said, now, Caldwell, I know this and that. I told that again now. And he kind of got, his eyes got big. He put a pretty good mad scene on. And I don't know why, but I started laughing at him. What in the hell are you laughing at? I said, well, you just look like to me is going to win the Academy Award if you kept that up. Get out of here, Caldwell. I don't want to see you anymore. And I got up and left, so, but that all might have been an act, but anyway, he did a pretty good job of it. And went back to our little, now this was even smaller cell than that other one I'm telling you about, where it was where they work on airplanes. It wasn't big enough for two people. Wasn't wide enough, and I don't think if you'd laid down, I don't believe it'd have been long, but they turned the heat up. And they just did it for a little while, but I'll tell you, it was enough to make you kind of start sweating, and you thought, oh my Lord, that old boy got mad, and he turned the heat up on us, but they turned it off, it didn't last. So we left there and went to the town that's pretty prominent in that area was a town named Weimar. They pronounce it Weimar. We pronounced it Weimar, Weimar. And we'd already gone by the other prominent town that we didn't know about, Dresden. I saw a sign on the old road there that said 25 kms to Dresden, and the arrow pointing, and it looked like it was a. Now we have all these fancy highway signs. Now Dresden's a pretty prominent town, and that's not too far away, but it looked like it was handmade. That sign, it said Dresden that way. But anyway, we went over from, if you look on the map, you'll see Weimar's sort of in the middle of Germany. Went over to Nuremberg. Now that's over on the extreme west side, where they had those hearings and all back after World War II. Stayed there a couple of weeks, and then we started marching south to Munich. Well, it was Moosburg. The prison camp was a little ways north of the city of Munich. And so it was about 100 miles down there. And we got out marching. And bear in mind now, I told you that the army was at Wehrmacht. And we hadn't been anywhere till we came to a little marshalling yard. You know what a marshalling yard is? It's a railroad. But it had a lot of tracks. I don't remember seeing any homes or anything. But anyway, and we were walking by that thing, and one of our own airplanes came diving out of the clouds were heavy that morning, and he dropped a bomb by one of those cars, and one of our guys had crawled under that train. Of course, it was standing still, but he killed him. And you see those old guards, they all hit the ditch right along with us. They was wanting to get away from that bombing. And they got in a huddle. It was about 8 or 10 of them. And they came back and got on those megaphones. They were tired being our guard, and we could just walk like we wanted to, and when we wanted to Munich. They were going to go home, get out of this mess. I said, that was sort of, I don't know if they get out of this mess, but they said, we're going to go home. And we never saw any guards again until we got to prison. It really, those guys were all, seemed like all of them were too old. You know, when you're 20 or 21, everybody 50 years old looks old. Well, anyway, they took off, and we could just start walking as we did. So we got down to, walked on that Autobahn, I call them Autobahns, and the last 20 or 30 miles we had to get off and get on a little country road. And we saw a bunch of German soldiers out in an open field there by the road, singing and dancing, and so we just had to see what was going on. So we stopped, went in, and there's a doctor met us and said he could speak English, and he said, "Oh, they're celebrating President Roosevelt. That they got word that he had died." And they thought the war would be over, you know, the worm would turn. And they were just having the greatest time. And I had a bad throat, and he looked down it and gave me some sulfa and told me to get on a little one ox cart and ride on over to the prison camp. So I was glad to hear that. So anyway, we got over to the prison camp, big. I never did get very far from our side of it, but I understand it was very big. And now it's about 20 miles north of Dresden, if you want to ever look. Called Moose. Little town's called Mooseburg. Well, we'd been there, I guess, a week or so, and we could hear cannons going off and bombs bursting and what have you. Then it got louder and louder. Then it got where we could hear rifles shooting, and that meant they were pretty close. But it was our guys. It was Patton and his bunch. And the bullets got to coming through the barracks, and man, those old guards, they were, it was so sad. They were kind of on the outside. Several of them were on the outside of the fences, old high chicken wire fence, and they climbing up to the top of that old wire, and it was going like, and they'd fall over and they'd into the prison. That's where they wanted to be, and it was hurting some of them. So we went out and drug a few of them in to get them out of the weather and so on. But about noon one day, boy, I mean, the bullets were really close. And we could see a Jeep coming, and on that Jeep was old Patton. And they opened the gate and let him into prison. And we're by now standing as close as, I was as close as that podium there. I wasn't on the front row, but I close enough that I could see him. And he's sitting up on the back of that Jeep, like King Tut, you know, just like a statue. He didn't look at anybody. He didn't wave to anybody, salute, nothing. They moved into that, he drove into that compound, opened the gate for him. He got out, went into a little building there and stayed about 30 minutes and came back, and same thing. He walked right by these guys, and he didn't look at them and smile or thank you or what or a salute, nothing. Got on that Jeep just like old Tut and backed out of there and took off. So he didn't sit too well with but he did he did liberate us. So we were happy for that. And that was about the end of it.
Do you recall the day your service ended officially, that you went back home?
Yeah. I got 90 days. So I was still in the service all those 90 days. So it was January of 1946. I got home and 90 days, then I had some days that, but anyway, I got out of the service in 46, January, I think, and sometime in January.
How were you received by your family and your community?
Well, great, man. When I landed at, we came across the Atlantic on a ship, and they still had U-boats out in the water, so we had took us 14 days to come across, because they were making U-turns all the way across. And took us up to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and I was thinking they'd given us a little allowance, but I don't think I had enough for an airplane. So I got to talking, well, why don't you go out to the airport, and I bet there's an air base there. I went out there, and I'll be darned if there wasn't no more flying to Dallas, Texas, with something that I've forgotten what it was, but he'd be glad to take me. So I got on. We flew to Dallas and landed and got out and thanked him. And they had a shuttle going into downtown to a certain spot, those big hotels. And I'm standing there on the corner deciding, now what'll I do? Go to the bus station where I don't know where it is or what? And here comes a car, pulls up. I'm standing at the curb, and they rolled the window down, and they recognized me. They were going home to Durant. Do you want a ride? And they asked, what are you doing here? And all this, went through that. But anyway, I got a ride from Fort Dix to Durant, free, and couldn't have been better connections. So come to find out, the lady driving the car, I'd worked in a grocery store and they were customers, and I was in high school, and she knew exactly who I was, and I kind of thought who she was. But she had 3 people in the back seat, and her daughter and her were in the front seat. So, get in. Took me all the way home. That was it. But received, oh, and yeah, made us all feel good, great, and good to be home. Nothing like it.
Do you receive any promotions or awards from your time in service?
I did everything just a little bit early. If I'd have thrown 3 more missions, I'd have been made a captain. Just before I got out, I was sent back to a base that I had been in to start with, Perrin Field, and I was made to a job that is held by ladies, a major, usually a lieutenant colonel. But I'm a squadron commander, and I needed another month. Stay in another month, Caldwell, we'll make you a captain. And I said, no, I'm gonna get out. That's not gonna help me too much. So I did not. Oh, I got good conduct and flying and all, a bunch of little things like that. But I did not get it. Well, I got promoted from 2nd to 1st lieutenant, but I did not get a captain, or of course, if I'd have made the captain over there, I probably would have got to be a major here at Perrin Field with that squadron commander job, but I served the last 5 or 6 months as a squadron commander, and it just wasn't quite long enough. But so, no.
How did your military experiences affect your life?
Oh, I don't know. Like I say, I'd had 3.5 years, and I guess it made you be well received wherever or whatever you wanted to do, and I imagine that had a little bearing on when I bought that grocery store. I didn't put any money up. The bank totally financed me. I talked to him at 12 o'clock, and I owned a grocery store at 2. So I didn't go checking with Mom and Dad and the neighbor and a nice friend across the street. I just signed the paper. And like I say, I'm sure that helped, but I don't know that. Now, I had more attention in the last year or two with people like Nancy and some others that's put my name up to be this or that and speak but hadn't been a promotion yet.
Do you have a message you'd like to leave for future generations that see this interview?
Well, I hate to, I just would have one, is that if these young guys would look at some of the, or most of the people that they know that's been in the service, it has been far, those that had no ambition, they had no desire to, or they were going nowhere with they have been a better person than most of them now, and they started achieving their goals by serving in the service, their regulated time. And so I would say, if a young man gets out of high school or maybe even college and still doesn't know what he wants to do, I don't think it's a bad thing to do, to serve in the service. And it's got a terrible, sort of a bad reputation. You hear every now and then one that starts drinking or even smoking, you know, and but I think they ought to consider taking their turn in the service. And usually their parents talk them out of it, place them into it. So Dad could have had a bad experience, or he knew somebody that did, and Junior doesn't know what he's going to do. He got a degree, but I don't know what it's in. So I would say go into service.
Okay. Well, that concludes the interview. Thank